My whole life, I've been a creative type. Painting, making music, writing, really anything artsy I enjoyed. But at 18, I moved to NYC for school. Since then, my art projects go unfinished. I'm in a block. That's why I visited Mary Herzog at her office. She's a creative block therapist.
I've been a painter for over 40 years, so I have an in-depth understanding of working with the creative process and also what it means to have a creative block. I'm thinking of changing that top color to a red, darker red.
I'm an artist, and I have writer's block.
So in terms of inspiration and insight, creativity, what I've learned and what's been surprising to me is that whereas you might have a moment of inspiration, you can't just sit around and wait for that. You have to prepare to be inspired.
So I took her advice. I had to take action, and I chose to document my quest to overcome my creative block. I decided to interview 3 New York artists to study how they become inspired. I reached out to a painter, a jazz musician, and a singer-songwriter to find out where their creativity comes from. I had Mary's professional help to analyze their processes along the way. My first stop, Harlem, to visual artist Jason August's home studio.
Oh, greetings. Welcome, Wadada. Come in. I am a visual creative artist, painting and creating things with my hands and whatever inspiration I find throughout life to make it more visually pleasing. My artistic style came through going deep into myself and moving forward from that point of creation. For inspiration, I go to that silent place within, and I am guided to that source of inspiration. It could be a thought, it could be a sight, it could be a sound, but something that's inspiring me to move that creation forward.
It's often the case that someone like Jason, who's a painter, may be a person who looks inward for his answers, inward for his insight and inspiration rather than to the outward world, because I notice that painters tend to have a more introverted process.
And when I have a creative block, sometimes walk away, breathe, and then come back to it, and it's not a block, it's more fluid, and we have to kind of be still and kind of stop moving so much and find it. And then when you're quiet, you hear how loud that inspiration can truly be. Sometimes, it's good just to go and just see what other people are doing. Just see their artwork and how they're creating and what, they come up with in their own mind.
As I watched Jason mount a piece at his home-based neighborhood gallery, I realized that spending time with him was motivating me to create. Jason looked into himself for inspiration, but I was finding it through watching him work. That day, I was sad to leave Harlem. The painter had a perspective on art and life unlike anyone I had ever met. But I had to head back downtown to my NYU campus. On Thursdays, Professor Mike Richmond teaches me blues piano, and I couldn't wait to get his insight as a professional musician.
Do it 3 or 4 times in a relaxed way.
He had even told me that he didn't suffer from creative blocks. So naturally, I wanted his advice.
I've been at NYU for 28 years. I've performed with Miles Davis, Stan Getz. I've been in the studio with David Bowie, amongst other people, and I still perform and record. I started playing jazz in 10th grade when I was 14 years old. What I like then and what I like now is how it makes me feel, and the freedom that you have within the framework of the song and the chords to create what you want to create. Well, I'm inspired when I play by the musicians I'm working with on stage. You basically play off of and with the people that are playing with you. As a jazz musician, improvisation is anything you're making up as you do it. It isn't really a premeditated process, it's just an inspirational flow.
Improvisation helps because you're bypassing the analytical, logical part of your brain, and you're working from a very different part of your brain that's freer to just, move along many different lateral paths.
Basically, I improvise on the bass, the cello, and the piano. When somebody says 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, bam, then you're gone. 20 minutes later, the song is over, There's never a mental block when you start going. It's impossible to stop. I'm an artist, I'm a musician. That inspires almost everything I do. There's so many sounds in your head, so many melodies, so many chords in your mind, either something you're creating or something you've heard along the way during the day, or something that you heard when you were 10 years old and it just came back to you at 3 in the morning. It never stops. Once you get into the flow, it sounds simplistic, but the universe takes over.
So musical improvisation was Professor Richmond's channel for an unblocked creative flow. I was starting to understand ways that I could avoid creative blocks. Next, I took the J train over to Brooklyn to visit my friend Charisse Marie in one of her studio recording sessions.
I am a music artist, also actress, sometimes model, but I am a music artist.
Singer and songwriter?
And singer and songwriter, all of those things. When it comes to songwriting, I tend to write songs in blocks. When I say that, writing a song to, music itself doesn't necessarily mean you need to have the verse first and then the chorus second or whatever. Sometimes, the chorus just comes out first because that's the soul of the song. That's the meat and potatoes of everything that you're talking about. And then everything else will come.
Please don't make me feel like this is gonna end tonight.
My songwriting process is different. A lot of the time it comes to me while I'm sleeping. I will wake up out of my sleep or first thing in the morning just because lyrics came to me.
It's well studied that people have dreamed the answers to their experiments in all fields. And that's when the conscious brain, the evaluating critical brain, is offline, so that the unconscious, more free, associative, imaginative, visual part of the brain can do its work. So for Charisse, it makes perfect sense that a lot of her inspiration could come from that time and that part of her psyche.
When you wake up in the morning, your first thoughts are always, what am I going to do next? But when you're sleeping, you're in the now, and your only focus is what's in your desire of the heart. As far as creative blocks are concerned, it depends on where you're at in life and what you're doing and why. When I've had creative blocks, it's been because of unpredictable circumstances, meaning I was depressed. When you're depressed, that can hinder almost anything, everything, even living. More than that, I felt like there was a time in my life I felt that as though, nothing was inspiring me, nothing was driving me, nothing was, really lifting me up. And in turn, I had to lift myself up or find individuals that could help me do that.
Charisse taught me that you have to work on yourself when you hit a creative wall. That depression can be the root of a block, and that you have to be open to spontaneous bouts of inspiration. They can hit hardest when you're least expecting it. After spending time with all 3 of my artists, I realized that they all suggested that I do one activity in particular.
Go somewhere else. Travel.
I've spent almost half my life out of the country traveling, performing out of the country.
Travel.
Mary agreed.
Traveling, I think, is very valuable because it brings you really outside your own frame of reference. And in fact, you're not even the same person when you're traveling in a way, because you're in such a different environment, and sometimes you aren't known by anyone, so it kind of frees up your sense of identity as well as your sense of anything familiar. And I think that can be extremely helpful to bring in new information, which would then be inspiring.
So I will travel, even if it just means heading over to Brooklyn to paint at the park. Through making this film, I created something out of my block. Jocelyn taught me that I can look inside myself or to other artists for inspiration. Like Professor Richmond, I've begun to record music that I improvise. And thanks to Charisse, I remember that inspiration can come to me when I'm least expecting it. I was able to move myself out of my block simply by following creative people around for a little while. Now it's time to travel to new places and continue creating in new ways. Who knows where I'll end up next?